Greetings, everyone. Welcome back. In 2020, I precisely predicted Joe Biden's electoral college triumph of 306 to 232. This video presents my updated electoral map prediction for Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. This electoral cycle has undoubtedly been one of the most captivating in American history. Only 5 months prior, Joe Biden was expected to be the Democratic nominee, but he exited the campaign in mid-July, enabling Kamala Harris to assume the lead position on the ticket. In August and September, the election seemed intensely contested, with numerous individuals on the left anticipating Harris's victory. Nonetheless, I've maintained consistency in my forecast during this time frame. We will begin with the likely outcomes for Donald Trump, starting with the two most apparent. Alaska, a state he has won by double-digit margins in the past two elections and is unlikely to lose despite its recent leftward shift, and Maine's 2nd district, which he is anticipated to win for a third consecutive time. Furthermore, in the Midwest, we have Iowa and Ohio in 2020. These two states were projected to be fiercely contested, with polls suggesting that Trump would win by a margin of only 1%. Nevertheless, he ultimately secured victories in Iowa and Ohio by a margin of 8 points each. Presently, polling indicates that Trump is up by roughly 6 to 8 points in these contests, presumably allowing him to exceed the double-digit threshold. Nonetheless, this margin will not be adequate for these races to be deemed secure. Trump is unlikely to secure victories in Iowa and Ohio by margins of 15 points or greater. These states are expected to be trustworthy for the former president, providing him with additional 23 electoral votes. Additionally, in the Sun Belt, there are two more states likely to support Trump. We will start with Texas, where polling indicated Trump was ahead by just 1 in 2020, a state he won. He ultimately won by 6 and by 9 in 2016. Today, he is poised for his largest margin ever, with polling in Texas indicating a 10 leg. He may approach the 15 threshold, a feat no Republican has achieved since Mitt Romney in 2012. It is evident that Texas has been shifting leftward and is no longer as Republican as it once was. However, this state is unlikely to turn blue for at least another 2 to 3 decades. Consider the number of individuals that Texas Democrats must convert. To secure victory in the Lone Star State, millions of voters must be mobilized. However, this is unlikely to occur in the near future, suggesting that Texas will probably remain predominantly Republican. Historically, Florida has been one of the most competitive states in the nation. In 2012, it was the only battleground state on the electoral map decided by a margin of 2 points or fewer. In 2016, Trump achieved victory by a slim margin of 1.2. Prior to delving into the specifics, please subscribe, like this video, and share your opinions in the comment section. I appreciate your support. In 2020, contrary to anticipations that Joe Biden would succeed in Florida, he not only failed, but also exhibited inferior performance relative to Clinton's results from 4 years earlier, with Trump's lead widening. Florida is expected to have a substantial rise in support for Trump. Akin to the interval from 2016 to 2020, he is anticipated to achieve victory in the Sunshine State by a margin of roughly 10 percentage points, either slightly below or above that figure. As a result, with all confirmed and probably states considered, Donald Trump presently holds 219 electoral votes, merely 51 votes short of the presidency. Kamala Harris must enhance her position as we ascertain her potential state, starting with Oregon, which was likely for Hillary Clinton in 2016. The state is less liberal than its two adjacent states. In fact, the 2022 gubernatorial race was determined by a slim margin, although the Democrat finally triumphed. Furthermore, we regard New York and New Jersey as two states that are less progressive than their northeastern peers. Joe Biden achieved significant margins in 2020. Kamala Harris is improbable to duplicate his performance. New Jersey had a slightly robust blue alignment, whereas New York transitioned to blue by a margin of 23 points. Kamala Harris may be fortunate to achieve victory by even half that margin, considering the Democrats' diminishing performance in New York, which is no longer the bastion it once was. As a result, both states are inclined to support the vice president. Moreover, Kamala Harris is anticipated to secure victory in Colorado by a margin beyond 7 points. Notwithstanding Joe Biden's 14-point triumph in the previous election cycle, Colorado is going to be a lot more competitive, but considering just how blue it was in 2020, it's unlike that this state really gets that close. And so we're now left with the 12 most competitive races in the country, as well as the 2nd District of Mid. It is going to be these states that will actually decide who the 47th president is going to be. They make up less than a quarter of the Electoral College's 538 votes. but they really do have all the power when it comes to picking our next commander-in-chief. And so we're now going to fill in the lean states for both candidates. These are states that are going to go to or Trump by margins of 2 to 7. And so this time we'll start with the lean Harris states just to get them out of the way, because obviously we know that this election is going to come down to a group of 7, these 7 key battlegrounds, now the lean states. For Harris, they're all states that Joe Biden carried by likely margins from 4 years ago. These states were not that close last time, but they are significantly more competitive now that Harris is at the top of the ticket. We're going to start off out west in New Mexico. Harris is positioned to secure victory by just under 7 points. The state can undoubtedly become competitive. For instance, in the 2016 election, Clinton achieved victory by a narrow margin of 8. Harris's performance may further decline as Hispanic voters in New Mexico increasingly adopt conservative ideas. We also have Minnesota, the home state of Tim Walz. This is noteworthy. It is the home state of Harris's running mate, and she is improbable to exceed expectation. Joe Biden's campaign achieved victory in Minnesota by a margin of 7 points, with Kamala Harris as his running mate, despite her distant roots from the state. In 2016, she unequivocally identifies California as her native state. Hillary Clinton narrowly secured the state, suggesting that Trump could become a formidable contender in this area. The selection of Walz likely shielded Kamala Harris from a humiliating defeat. However, it has not enabled her to exceed the incumbent president's performance. We are now left with only 3 additional lean blue states in Nebraska's 2nd district, which Harris is projected to win by approximately 5 points following the 2021 redistrict. The 2nd district is increasingly liberal, encompassing Omaha and its adjacent suburbs, extending northeast to New Hampshire and Maine, 2 states that were highly competitive in 2016. Clinton narrowly secured New Hampshire by less than half a percentage point and Maine by under 3 points. While Harris is unlikely to perform as poorly as Clinton, she's also not expected to surpass Biden, who won New Hampshire by 7 points and Maine by 9. Consequently, both races are anticipated to lean blue. In Virginia, the race remains as competitive as it was in 2016, when Hillary Clinton prevailed by a mere 5 points, despite running alongside Tim Kaine, sitting senator from the Commonwealth of Virginia. She was unable to win the state by a likely margin. In 2020, Joe Biden secured Virginia by a margin of 10.1. Currently, the likelihood of a Republican victory in Virginia appears diminished, as the state is expected to be considerably more competitive than it was 4 years prior, with all solid likely and lean Democratic states accounted for. Biden has accumulated 226 electoral votes, closely trailing Donald Trump, who has 219. It is important to note that we have yet to consider the lean Republican states. The 7 battleground states highlighted in yellow on most electoral maps are pivotal. The outcomes in other states are largely predetermined. The lean Republican states reflect Trump's strong performance in contests that are anticipated to be evenly matched. We will outline Trump's pathway to victory, focusing on states he's projected to win by significant margins, as well as those that will be most competitive among the 7, beginning with Arizona. This state is likely to vote more conservatively than both Georgia and North Carolina, a deviation from its voting patterns in 2016 and 2020. In 2016, Trump secured Arizona by 3.5, but subsequently lost it to Joe Biden by 0.3. Arizona is a competitive state that has traditionally favored the Republican Party. However, it has drifted to the left over the past decade and is currently represented by 2 Democratic senators. The Republican Party has faced challenges in candidate selection for down-ballot races, as demonstrated by Kari Lake's defeat in the 2022 gubernatorial election and her following loss to Ruben Gallego in the Senate race. Martha McSally's 2 lost bids have additionally impeded Republican aspirations. Notwithstanding these hurdles, Republicans have the capacity to achieve victories in Arizona dependent on enhanced candidate selections. Donald Trump, as a formidable candidate, is likely to secure victory in Arizona, which is anticipated to favor the Republican Party. I am presently expecting a margin of victory of roughly 3 for the former president in the eastern region. Moreover, early voting data in Georgia and North Carolina seem advantageous for Republicans, suggesting that Trump is likely to win both states. Although he secured North Carolina in 2020, he lost Georgia, the most contested state in the nation. Biden was the first Democrat to achieve victory since Bill Clinton in 1992, taken to Arizona. Georgia has always been a Republican stronghold, endorsing Trump by 5 points in 2016, Romney by 8 in 2012, and McCain by 5 in 2008. During the Bush presidency, it's shown a preference for Republicans by 16 points. Consequently, Georgia is likely to return to Republican control, but with a narrow margin for Trump. This signifies a secondary triumph for the former president, who is anticipated to also obtain North Carolina, the only swing state he has prevailed in during both prior elections. Trump presently possesses 262 electoral votes and must secure any 3 of the remaining upper Midwestern states to exceed 270. Nevada will be inadequate. We will initiate in Pennsylvania. This state is likely the first to support Trump, considering it is geographically situated between Michigan and Wisconsin in terms of political orientation. Kamala Harris chose Tim Wells as her running mate. Minnesota substantially impacts Wisconsin, perhaps yielding a slight advantage for the state. Hence, Pennsylvania is projected to be the crucial element that elevates Trump past 270 electoral votes. He triumphed in the state in 2016 alongside Michigan and Wisconsin, enabling him to achieve triumphs in these 3 competitions in 2020. Despite losing Pennsylvania by 1.2, he currently leads in the polls by around 1. He will undoubtedly exceed expectations and regain Pennsylvania. Thus, the election is essentially finalized. The Electoral College margin by which Trump prevails is irrelevant. He is positioned to obtain several more states, especially the tilt states, where contests will be decided by 2 percentage points or fewer, beginning with Wisconsin and Michigan. If Trump attains victory in Pennsylvania, he is improbable to lose these contests. All 3 of these states, known as the former Blue Wall states, reliably support the same candidate. The most recent occasion on which they did not endorse the same contender was during the 1988 election. Since 1992, they have consistently voted Democratic until in 2016, when Trump achieved victories in all 3 instances. In 2020, Joe Biden reestablished their support. I do not foresee a shift in this trend. I expect all 3 will converge on the same candidate, presumably the former president. Nevada has proven to be elusive for Republicans among all swing states during the previous 2 decades. Nevada is the only state Donald Trump has never won, but this will change in 5 days. Nevada is likely to become Republican, having moved rightward in the last 10 years. Republicans attained the governorship with Joe Lombardo, who displaced the Democratic incumbent Steve Sisolak. As November approaches, I anticipate that Donald Trump will secure 312 electoral votes. Kamala Harris, 226, represents the most dismal Democratic performance since 1988. Harris is presently encountering substantial difficulties, whilst Donald Trump occupies an exceptionally favorable position within the election cycle. Trump is exploiting this advantageous moment. Thank you all for your viewership. Kindly ensure to comment and subscribe without delay.